You cannot block this street. The association bylaws are very clear on this.
According to this deed, the fence is on my property.
Cold air hit my face when I turned into our Cul De Sac and slammed on the brakes because a brand new metal fence was sitting across the road. My headlights bounced off silver bars. Hazard lights from the car behind me flashed red on the wet asphalt. I smelled fresh tar and stale coffee in my cup holder and knew this one up while we slept. It was 6:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. The truck behind me swerved, horn blaring, and nearly took out a mailbox because the turn was gone. I crept closer and saw the cheap plastic sign zip-tied to the fence, "Residents only know through traffic violators will be towed." Then I spotted a bright orange notice with my house number, saying my use of the driveway would be reviewed. Right then I knew the HOA fenced off our Cul De Sac turn without a permit. Then I pulled the deed and they'd picked the wrong neighbor. By 9:00 a.m. I was in the HOA office at the clubhouse, still smelling like coffee and cold air. Our HOA president, full Karen haircut and pastel blazer, sat behind the desk like a queen. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. She said, "The fence is for safety, you should be thanking us." I told her the turn was a public easement, not her private driveway. She slid a paper toward me. "If you challenge board decisions, we can fine you up to $200 per incident." Two neighbors walked in, saw my face, and went very quiet. Later one whispered, "I can't afford more fines, they already sent me 3 letters." My emails about the fence got no reply. My request for an emergency meeting got stamped received and then disappeared. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. False trespass call on my visiting brother, also ignored. Driving home past that ugly fence, my heart pounded like I'd swallowed ice. That was my line in the sand. I promised myself I would not cut locks or ram anything with my car. I would use proper channels and beat them with their own rules. That night I opened the bylaws, the city code, and the deed to our house. It felt like homework from the 9th circle of boring, but one thing popped out fast: the road and that turn had been given to the city years before the HOA existed. The next afternoon I went to City Hall, walked through the smell of paper and copier toner, and filed a public records request. When the clerk printed the road file, it landed with 63 pages on the counter. Old maps, permit histories, and exactly 0 permits for any fence in our Cul De Sac. At home, I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder like I was building a true crime case. Once I knew the fence was illegal, I needed everyone else to see it. Quiet complaining had done nothing. So I called the city inspector whose name was on the file and then our district council office. I explained that kids were now standing in the street because a private fence blocked the bus turn, and an ambulance would have to back down half the block. I stayed calm, stuck to facts, and emailed copies of the deed and maps. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted, the council aide reminded me, and I could hear the interest in his voice. We set a site visit for the same day the HOA was throwing their big spring safety fair in the Cul De Sac, with popcorn, a police car for kids to crawl through, and a bounce house. Karen had bragged about it for weeks. I did not tell her about the inspector. I just told my neighbors, "Bring your phones." The day of the fair, the whole street smelled like hot dogs and popcorn butter. Kids ran circles around the very fence that blocked ambulances from turning. At 2:15 p.m., a white city SUV rolled in, followed by a patrol car, and every parent around me quietly hit record. The inspector walked straight to the fence and asked whose structure this was. Karen marched over, plaster smile on her face, and said the HOA has full authority over this private road. The inspector held up the deed copy I had emailed and said, "Actually, this is city right-of-way, and there is no permit recorded for any fence." Then he opened the file and said patterns of false reports can be prosecuted, and this address has a lot of them. The cop raised his notepad and said, "We have at least 12 calls from this address asking us to ticket people for normal driving, none of which broke any law." Neighbors laughed. Someone muttered, "So she made up traffic crimes to get her way." The inspector wrote an immediate violation order and a fine for unsafe obstruction of a public roadway, pointing at a kid squeezing sideways past the metal. That night my neighbor's teen edited the clips together, titled it "HOA President Blocks Cul De Sac, Gets Blocked by City Instead," and posted it online. Within 2 days there were over 100,000 views and our group chat lit up with people sharing their own letters and call logs. At the next board meeting, 6 new neighbors showed up with printed complaints. The city's written order, with the fine of $2,500, sat in the middle of the table like a trophy. Even the treasurer looked tired of her. A month later, on May 21 at 10:00 a.m., a hired crew took down the fence while Karen watched from her porch, arms folded, face red. Now trucks back up and turn without fear. The school bus does one clean loop and the kids cheer like it's a ride. Karen announced she was stepping back from leadership for personal reasons, which everyone translated as the board pushed her out. One warm evening at a small block party, my elderly neighbor with the walker squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you, I feel safe again." I looked at the open turn, the sunset on the asphalt, and finally felt it too. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.